What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Thursday, April 11th, 2024, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now, it is 21:50 Eastern Time here in the United States, and I wanted to update you on the situation with Iran and Israel. The situation is continuing to spiral out of control, and it looks like we're on the verge of nuclear war because what's going to happen is Iran is going to strike Israel, and then Israel's going to retaliate back, and then Iran is going to retaliate back, and it's just going to escalate. And I want to remind you guys that Hezbollah has thousands and thousands of rockets that they can launch at Israel. And if Hezbollah unleashes all of its rockets on Israel, Israel is going to be forced to use their Samson option, which is their nuclear option. Okay, Israel has about 100 nuclear weapons. They have Jericho 3 missiles. They have bombs they can drop from their F-15s and F-35s. And then they also have Popeye missiles that they can launch from their subs, which are believed to be potentially nuclear tipped. So this could spiral out of control, guys. Okay, Israel has a nuclear arsenal. They're not going to allow their country to be turned into dust. Okay, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has made it clear multiple times that he can and will respond to any Iranian attack. So I want to just get you guys up to speed with some of the latest information, but it's continuing to spiral out of control. The mainstream media is talking about this now 24/7 over the last 2 days. And since yesterday, we've had over 150 nuclear attack options broadcasted. Okay, so in about 36 hours, 150 nuclear attack options were broadcasted by the Pentagon to U.S. nuclear forces. And this is way more than the amount of nuclear attack options that were broadcasted when Prigozhin led his rebellion against Putin last year. Okay, so this is a very, very serious situation, and you need to make sure you're prepared for this to escalate. Okay, some of the Iranian military officials have threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz, which would block a lot of the world's oil supply. Okay, so that would cause an oil crisis. Iran could also strike our oil refineries in Saudi Arabia. That would cause a major problem. Okay, and of course, like I said, this could escalate to the point where Israel is going to be left with no choice but to use nuclear weapons against Hezbollah or even Iran. And this could also lead to the U.S. and Israel launching a retaliation strike against Iran together on Iran's nuclear facilities. Okay, last November, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a resolution giving Biden the authority to denuclearize Iran. Okay, so Biden already has a declaration of war, and all he's got to do is just give the green light to the generals and launch this huge attack on Iran to denuclearize them, to decapitate their government. Okay, this could happen. Okay, so get prepared. And we also know that Russia and Iran have a defense pact. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is My Patriot Supply. Guys, My Patriot Supply is doing a massive 30% discount on their 1-week emergency food supply. And to get the discount, you got to use the link in the description below this video, which is preparewithnyprepper.com. The normal price for their 1-week freeze-dried emergency food supply is $80. They're knocking it down to $50 for 1 week of emergency food with a 25-year shelf life, and it's all packed into a small lockable ammo can with a waterproof gasket. They also have a general store, And to get to their general store, you just got to click on the My Patriot Supply logo at the top of the page when you get to preparewithnyprepper.com. And their general store has everything you can imagine prepping and survival related, and they're always doing discounts. So check it out. Use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get over 35% off of the My Patriot Supply 1 week emergency food supply, and also to get access to their general store. And they're always doing discounts there. I'll leave the link in the description below this video. And Russia, Iran, and China were doing joint naval drills in the Arabian Sea like a month or two ago. Okay, so it's very possible Russia and China could then get involved, and this could all be the Ezekiel 38 and 39 war talked about in the Bible, when all these countries team up against Israel and attack Israel. Okay, I don't know. It sounds like it though. So, want to just share the latest information that I have. Israel is preparing for scenarios in locations other than Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned during a visit to an Israeli airbase today. We are in the midst of the war in Gaza, which is continuing at full force, even as we are continuing our relentless efforts to return our hostages. However, we are also prepared for scenarios involving challenges in other sectors, Netanyahu said, according to a readout from his office. Speaking to Israeli Air Force personnel at the Tel Naf Air Base south of Tel Aviv, the Prime Minister said Israel had developed a strategy in the face of potential attacks. We have determined a simple rule: whoever harms us, we will harm them. We are prepared to meet all of the security needs of the state of Israel, both defensively and offensively, Netanyahu explained. While at the base, the Israeli leader also received an update on Israel's activity during the war in Gaza from the deputy base commander and squadron commander, according to his office. So Netanyahu saying, whoever harms us, we will harm them. And it's interesting that he went to the Tel Naf Air Base. The Tel Naf Air Base is one of the air bases in Israel that is suspected to be the air base where Israel has their nuclear strike fighter jets, okay? And we know from various sources that over the last few days, Israel has been practicing strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, but he was speaking at an air base where the Israeli Air Force keeps their F-15s and their F-35s for their nuclear strike missions, okay? Want to just remind you guys some of the headlines from the past few days because there's been so much news coming in. So I want to just mention some very important things that happened this week. So Khan News out of Israel reported yesterday that the Israeli Home Front Command had began approaching municipalities, local and regional councils across Israel, warning them about a possible escalation in the security situation in the coming days and reminding them where public bomb shelters are. Okay, so the Israeli Home Front Command, that's like the Israeli Civil Defense, started meeting with local governments in Israel, talking to them about a possible war with Iran, basically, and potentially a massive attack from all fronts. And we have multiple sources saying that Iran is going to launch this attack on Israel simultaneously as all the Iranian proxies launch an attack on Israel. So this is going to be coordinated with Iran itself, with their missiles and drones, and then also the Iranian proxies like Hezbollah and the Houthis and some of these other ones in Syria and Iraq. Okay, but this is very serious, guys. The Israeli Home Front Command, the Israeli Civil Defense, meeting with local governments, telling them where public bomb shelters are. And the Iranian defense minister announced yesterday that they have suspended all flights in the skies of Tehran, both domestic and international. Okay, so suspending all domestic and international flights over the capital of Iran. And also U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, in a phone call with Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, made it clear that the U.S. will stand with Israel against any threats by Iran and its proxies. And an unnamed U.S. official told Al Jazeera, "We do not rule out launching joint retaliatory strikes with Israel if it is attacked by Iran or its agents." And Iran has told the White House that if the U.S. defends Israel against its forthcoming retaliation for the Damascus strike, it will consider the U.S. a viable target as well. Wow. So now we're going to become the enemy if we help Israel in their retaliation against Iran for Iran's retaliation. And there were widespread reports this week indicating that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard have put all their missile and radar systems on combat alert, and foreign embassies and consulates in Israel are reported to be in the process of preparing for an Iranian retaliatory attack, with Israeli authorities telling diplomatic staff to obtain a stock of emergency supplies, including generators and satellite phones. The U.S. Embassy in the city of Jerusalem, as well as several others, are establishing a number of contingency plans that would allow diplomatic staff to be evacuated in the case of a major conflict occurring. And yesterday, the Iranian foreign minister received calls from his counterparts in Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE to discuss the tensions in the region and to urge de-escalation. German airline Lufthansa has canceled all its flights to Tehran. And the Jerusalem Post reported yesterday that U.S., British, and French diplomats have evacuated from Israel. Okay? So this is very, very serious, guys. This is not a joke. This is going to happen. And I want to remind you guys about that NOTAM that was posted a few days ago here on the FAA NOTAM website. And it was about the rocket launches that were going to take place through tonight. Well, they prematurely canceled that NOTAM earlier today, so I'm not sure why that was canceled, but it's gone now. But we had over 150 nuclear attack options broadcasted in the last 36 hours. It has quieted down a little bit this evening, but I'm going to continue to monitor the situation, and as soon as anything happens, I will go live as long as necessary to cover the situation, just like I did when Prigozhin made his march, just like I did when Israel launched their initial attack on Gaza. Okay, I always go live when big situations happen, so you can count on me for 24/7 live coverage. I also covered the concert hall attack in Moscow. And I want to remind you guys what the Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, said on Twitter. He said that when the Israeli regime attacks an Iranian consulate in Syria, it is as if it has been attacking Iranian soil. That malicious regime has made a wrong move. It should be punished, and it will be punished. Clearly, he says here it will be punished. He doesn't say it may be punished. He says it will be punished. And he said that this Israeli strike on the Iranian consulate in Syria is the same thing as if Israel struck Iranian soil. So there's definitely going to be some kind of a retaliation. And today, the British foreign minister and former Prime Minister David Cameron spoke by phone with the Iranian foreign minister and warned Iran not to strike Israel. And U.S. and Israeli defense leaders discussed the imminent Iranian attack today. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin spoke with Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant today to reaffirm the U.S. ironclad commitment to Israel's security against threats from Iran and its proxies, according to a Pentagon spokesperson. The call comes a day after Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei said Israel must be punished and will be, following a strike on an Iranian embassy compound in Syria that killed 7 Iranian officials. A direct Iranian attack on Israeli territory would require an appropriate Israeli response against Iran, Gallant said on the call. according to a statement issued by his office. Okay, so the Israeli defense minister saying that if Iran strikes Israel directly, Israel will respond with a direct strike on Iran. And that could happen in coordination with the U.S. They could bring out the B-2s and annihilate the Iranian nuclear facilities. We have no idea, but this situation is spiraling out of control, and you need to be prepared. Israel will not tolerate an Iranian attack on its territory, the statement read, adding that the two defense leaders also discussed detailed preparations for an Iranian attack against the state of Israel. Gallant said an Iranian attack on Israel could lead to a regional escalation. It is the second discussion held between Gallant and Austin over the past week, according to the statement. Gallant expressed his appreciation for Austin's personal commitment to the security of the state of Israel and for the deepening cooperation between the defense establishments of both countries. And the U.S. State Department has restricted the travel of U.S. government personnel in Israel in the wake of public threats against Israel by Iran. Out of an abundance of caution, U.S. government employees and their family members are restricted from personal travel outside the Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Be'er Sheva areas until further notice. A security alert posted by the U.S. Embassy on Thursday said, U.S. government personnel are authorized to transit between these three areas for personal travel. The security environment remains complex and can change quickly depending on the political situation and recent events, the alert noted. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said he would not speak to the specific assessments that led to the U.S. restricting employees and family members' personal travel, but clearly we are monitoring the threat environment in the Middle East and specifically in Israel. We have seen Iran make public threats against Israel in the past few days, Miller said. Israel is in a very tough neighborhood, and we have been monitoring the security situation. You saw us slightly adjust the travel warnings at the beginning of this conflict, and we conduct ongoing assessments all the time. And the top U.S. diplomat spoke with Turkish, Chinese, Saudi counterparts about Iran, the State Department said today. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke with the foreign ministers of Turkey, China, and Saudi Arabia on Wednesday night and Thursday morning to tell them that countries should be urging Iran not to escalate the conflict in the Middle East after threats made by Tehran against Israel, according to a State Department spokesperson. What Blinken told his counterparts is that escalation is not in anyone's interest and that countries should urge Iran not to escalate, State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said at a news briefing. The U.S. has also engaged with European allies and partners over the past few days to deliver a similar message on Iran, he added. He spoke with Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant to reiterate U.S. support for Israel against these threats. So I want to just show you guys what David Cameron, the former Prime Minister of Britain, and he's now the Foreign Minister, tweeted this afternoon. Today, I made clear to Foreign Minister Amir Abdollahian that Iran must not draw the Middle East into a wider conflict. I am deeply concerned about the potential for miscalculation leading to further violence. Iran should instead work to de-escalate and prevent further attacks. Wow. Okay, strong statement here from David Cameron. And here's the warning that was put out by the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. You can see the date here, April 11th. The U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem reminds U.S. citizens of the continued need for caution and increased personal security awareness, as security incidents often take place without warning. The security environment remains complex and can change quickly on the political situation and recent events. Out of an abundance of caution, U.S. government employees and their family members are restricted from personal travel outside the greater Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Be'er Sheva areas until further notice. U.S. government personnel are authorized to transit between these three areas for personal travel. Okay, so this is very serious, guys, and they talk about mortar and rocket fire here. Okay, so very serious situation. And I want to play this video for you. This is Biden saying that the U.S. will support Israel if they get attacked by Iran.
I also want to address the Iranian threat to launch a significant, they're threatening to launch a significant attack on Israel. As I told Prime Minister Netanyahu, our commitment to Israel's security against these threats from Iran and its proxies is ironclad. Let me say it again, ironclad. We're going to do all we can to protect Israel's security.
And this evening, we had a nuke sniffer plane in the Gulf of Mexico, and it just landed in Stratcom at the Offutt Air Base in Omaha, Nebraska. There's also a nuclear war command and control plane in the Gulf of Mexico, but things have quieted down this evening from yesterday and the day before, where we had multiple doomsday planes, nuclear war command and control planes. We had 4 doomsday planes in the air 2 days ago. And then last night and yesterday evening, there were multiple nuclear war command and control planes. And Israeli Channel 13 quoted Israeli officials as saying, if the response comes from Iranian territory, Israel will have to respond strongly and without any delay. And Iran has sought assurances that the U.S. would not get involved in the event of a controlled attack on Israel by Iran, a demand which the U.S. rejected in a response delivered via Oman, sources say. This was reported by Reuters. Wow. So Iran was demanding that the U.S. would not support Israel in any kind of an attack on Iran if Iran launches this attack on Israel, and the U.S. rejected that. And I want to remind you guys that the CENTCOM commander is now in Israel. Okay, so the defense ministers of Israel and the U.S. have spoken. We have the foreign ministers of the U.S. and various Middle Eastern and European countries speaking with the Iranian foreign minister. We have the British foreign minister, David Cameron, warning the Iranian foreign minister. We have just a lot of signs that this is about to go down. And Israeli foreign minister Israel Katz wrote on the X social media platform, formerly known as Twitter, in both Farsi and Hebrew, that if Iran attacks from its territory, Israel will respond and attack in Iran. Okay, so Israel's not messing around, guys. And according to a U.S. official, the U.S. Eisenhower Aircraft Carrier Strike Group and several other coalition naval vessels have moved off the coast of western Yemen and in the direction of the northern Red Sea, closer to Israel, potentially in order to be further away from the Houthis and other Iranian proxies in the event that Iran and all the proxies launch this massive coordinated attack against Israel and U.S. forces in the Middle East, or potentially to help Israel intercept missiles that are coming in and drones. Okay, so this is huge, guys. They're moving an entire aircraft carrier strike group right next to Israel, okay? And the White House has confirmed that they told Iran that the U.S. was not involved in last week's airstrike in Damascus. And Politico, quoting CIA sources, said Iran's response will happen within the next 3 days. And that sounds about right. And Moscow on Thursday called on Iran and Israel to exercise restraint amid spiraling tensions in the Middle East. And I want to show you guys something interesting. If you watched my update earlier, I showed you guys the flight path of this plane in central Poland that had the call sign Dragon 51, and it had no information about it, as you can see here. No information about the type of aircraft, no registration information, no information on where it took off from or where it landed. And this plane was looping over central Poland. Turns out that's a U-2 spy plane, guys. We now have U-2 spy planes in Poland. That is a huge red flag that something is about to go down in potentially Poland and the Baltic countries. There was also a Polish F-16 that appeared to have been scrambled out of the city of Poznań in western Poland, and it flew in a straight line towards the tri-border of Belarus and Ukraine and Poland, and then it stopped close to the border with Ukraine, turned around and came back. So I don't know if that had something to do with a Russian missile possibly crossing into Poland or on its way towards Poland. But very, very tense situation in Eastern Europe. Here's a closer shot of that U-2 spy plane doing loops here just south of Bydgoszcz in west central Poland. Very, very concerning. And here we have a picture of that U-2 spy plane. You can see the call sign here, Dragon 51, and its registration is 80-1071. And this was on an aircraft tracking website. So this thing has flown as Dragon 51 before, but in this situation, they turned off all of the information about the plane and they just left the call sign Dragon 51. So we know it's a U-2 spy plane. Very serious, guys. And late last night, we had half a dozen Russian doomsday planes fly east to Siberia and the Ural Mountains, where Russia has a bunch of doomsday bunkers. I don't know if this is related to the situation with Iran. I don't know if something's about to go down in the Baltics or Poland. 2 weeks ago, Belarus moved an entire mechanized brigade to within just a few miles of Lithuania, and the dictator of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, went to the border of Lithuania and met his troops there. Hundreds of tanks and armored vehicles right on the border of Lithuania, okay, just 20 miles from the capital of Lithuania, Vilnius, and there are no NATO forces to stop the Belarusian army and the Russian army from crossing over into Lithuania and going to Vilnius. Germany announced this week that they're going to be sending 4,000 soldiers as part of a robust brigade to Lithuania now. Okay, so something is brewing here in Eastern Europe. I'm going to continue to monitor that situation. So this could be the final meeting that Lukashenko and Putin have before Lukashenko orders his military to invade Lithuania and open up another front for NATO. And this could all happen simultaneously, guys. Iran could attack Israel at the same time as Belarus attacks Lithuania. And then at the same time, Russia is going to start their offensive in eastern Ukraine and collapse the Ukrainian front lines and reach the Dnieper River and take the entire eastern half of Ukraine. It could all happen simultaneously, and it's going to be impossible for us to help Ukraine in that situation, to help Israel. We're going to be spread between those three conflict areas, and then that's not including Asia, okay? North Korea, South Korea, China, Taiwan, okay, and the Philippines as well, all right? China has been attacking Philippine fishing vessels, and Moscow has accused British special forces of operating in Ukraine. Russia's Federal Security Service, the FSB, has claimed that the UK's special boat service is operating in Ukraine and helping Ukrainian forces carry out attempted operations against Russian troops. The FSB, the main successor to the Soviet-era KGB, said it had foiled a plan by British special forces to land Ukrainian sabotage soldiers on the Tendrov Split, a sandbar in the Black Sea. It said it captured a senior Ukrainian Naval Special Forces soldier and that the Ukrainian Special Forces unit was supervised by a unit of the Special Boat Service, which indicates the direct involvement of Britain in the conflict. The SBS is a Special Forces regiment of the British Navy that traces its history to the early days of World War II. It has served in some of the biggest conflicts of the past 70 years, including the Korean War, Northern Ireland, the Falklands War, Sierra Leone, Afghanistan, and Iraq. A spokesperson for the British Defense Ministry did not respond. So this is very serious, guys. Russia is accusing Britain of sending amphibious special forces into Ukraine to help the Ukrainians land on this little peninsula in the Black Sea. Okay. And the Polish president said Poland has stockpiles of Soviet style air defense missiles and is considering transferring them to Ukraine. And the head of the Swedish Navy, Rear Admiral Haslum, accused Russia of interfering with the operation of the GPS system in the Baltic Sea and urged NATO to act. Months of Russian interception of GPS receivers in the Baltic Sea are not only unsafe, interference with navigation and aviation interference with aviation and shipping is damaging regional economies, and it is time for NATO to act, Haslum said. Wow. And South Korea and Britain wrapped up a joint maritime patrol in waters near the Korean Peninsula on Thursday. And the US, Australia, and Japan will establish a joint network of air defense systems, Biden said during a visit to Japan with the Prime Minister Kishida. And 2 nights ago, we had these two German Air Force planes with the call signs Bomber 33 and Bomber 34 fly all the way to eastern Poland near Belarus and stop within just a few miles of the Belarus border and do a couple of loops. And I'm wondering if this is not training for an attack on Belarusian military sites with nuclear weapons or conventional weapons. This is very serious, guys. And I want to remind you of all of this reconnaissance activity that was over Estonia last night. Okay, and that's at the same time as the U-2 was circling over Poland. We had all of this going on here while the U-2 was in Poland. This is insane, guys. We had an Italian AWACS plane fly all the way from Italy to Estonia to patrol Estonia, and it was doing loops here. Okay, something serious is brewing over here near the Estonian border if an Italian AWACS plane is scrambled from Italy and it flies all the way from Italy just to patrol Estonia. Okay, NATO has a lot of different AWACS planes, and for them to scramble one to Estonia is very concerning. It means something urgent was happening. And then you had a NATO AWACS plane here. You had an Estonian Air Force plane patrolling here. You also had a Swedish reconnaissance plane and also a US RC-135 patrolling, a UK RC-135. That's a recon plane patrolling the area as well. This is insane, guys. Something is brewing here, okay? Also, up here in Northern Europe, we had a P-8 Poseidon subhunter flying off the coast of Murmansk, which is where Russia has their northern fleet. That's where they have most of their nuclear-armed subs, okay? And we also had a lot of VIP movement into the Baltics. There was a U.S. Army Chinook that flew from northeast Poland to Lithuania. And then there was also a U.S. Air Force VIP plane that flew from Ramstein into the Baltics. And then we had a Polish presidential doomsday plane that flew from Lithuania to Warsaw, from the capital of Lithuania, Vilnius, to the capital of Poland. So the Polish president was most likely in Vilnius. This is very serious, guys, okay? And then 2 nights ago, we had more massive reconnaissance here. So that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will continue to monitor the situation with Iran and Israel, and also in the Baltics and in Asia. So if anything happens, I will go live to cover the situation, and I will be back tomorrow with more breaking news. So until then, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.